Hello, my friend. On today's episode, I'm with Ben Pickard, and we are talking about how to systemize anything in your business. So if you want your business to run like clockwork, if you want your business to run like a machine, so much so that you might not even need to be there as much as an owner, this is the episode for you. We walk through how to create really clear expectations for your team, how to hold them accountable, and make sure that everyone is clear about the lane that they are running in on your team. So if you want more systemized business, this is a great episode for you. Grab your notebook and keep on listening. Hello, fitness business nerd. What's up? Welcome to another episode of the Business for Unicorns podcast. Today, before we jump into today's topic, I want to give you a little tip, which is we put out a brand new tool on our website that is free and maybe one of the most valuable things we've ever shared, which is done for you sales scripts. I know many of you struggle with the S word, with sales in your business, and it's you and some people on your team might struggle with the idea of actually using a script to have sales conversations. But there's no more powerful tool for getting effective at converting leads into paying members than having a consistent process to follow. So even if you don't use our scripts per se, in fact, you should make them your own, go download this free sales scripts tool. It'll give you a process to follow, and the more consistent you can execute a process like this, the more consistently you can turn new strangers into new members. So click the link down below in the show notes, get the free sales script tool, and start using it. Start using it today. That being said, Ben's here. What's up, Ben? How are you, my friend?
I'm good, sir. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited to have you today because we're going to talk about one of the least sexy topics in gym ownership, but I think one of the most fun and important ones. I know you and I are big fans of this. And the topic today is about how to systemize anything in your business. So what we're really talking about is standard operating procedures, or SOPs. And this is the process by which we document the things that matter most in our gym to make sure they can happen consistently over time. I know for a lot of you listening, you're rolling your eyes, oh, they're really talking about SOPs again. I know this topic comes up a lot on this podcast. And my answer is, yeah, we're fucking talking about it again because it's that important. And a lot of people just continue to stink at it. I say with all love in my heart. It's a hard thing to get good at because every SOP is a little different. Every team is a little different. So anyway, we're going to talk about this topic today. And I think all of you should grab your notepad and a piece of paper because we're going to get real detailed about what it looks like to systemize processes in your business. And so if you want more consistency in your business, more consistent performance, more consistent outcomes, more consistent revenue, it starts by creating processes that help you and your team be consistent. So let's dive into this topic. Ben, I want to hear from you. How do you think about what SOPs are, what function they serve in your gym?
I think they serve a lot of functions. A system can run anything. I'd say the primary function it serves is getting usually you as the owner out of doing all the things. Mm-hmm. That's the job to be done, I believe, in this situation. Yes. I need to be able to get things off my plate so I can do marketing, etc., whatever the thing is. But I don't know who I can give this to, or I don't know how to train them. Yeah. Great. The first step is an SOP. It's not the last step. There are other things that need to happen for a business to run effectively, for you to not be tied to all the things that you're doing. But it's the first step. And it's really, in broad strokes, I believe, setting really clear expectations and by when and accountability for the things that need to happen. It's not, hey, Michael, I'm really busy this week. Can you just take care of these couple things for me? And you're yeah, I think I can do that. Great. Thanks for the help. And then lo and behold, Michael, even if he does his best, fucks it up because I delegated it like shit. Yeah. I set no expectations. I didn't tell him when it needed to be done by. I didn't show him the best practice for getting those things done. So no wonder when he did that thing, it kind of flopped. Yep. And then that gives me the feedback of, I can't delegate to things. I have to be the one to do it because I'm the best at it. And yeah, the loop continues. So that was a bit bigger of an answer than you might have been going for, but
no, I love it. No, I think my answer to the same question for myself is actually very similar, which is I think of a business like a gym. I think of a gym as being one giant system. And systems have an input in the front, they have some throughput in the middle, and they got some output out the back, right? And the stuff in the middle, the throughput, are all the processes you use to get the output, right? All the processes you use to get the results that you help your team and your clients get every day. And all too often, we have a lot of expectations for what that process, what they want those processes to look like as gym owners, but we don't do enough work to actually document and make our implicit expectations explicit. So we have all these things we're looking for in people's performance and how things go every day, but they don't know it. It's all just in our head. So we're like quietly getting resentful that people aren't performing the way we want them to. But we never actually explicitly told them what we want, or given them the proper training, or reminded them, or held them accountable. And so SOPs are really like the language we use to speak as a team about who's going to do what, by when, and how. Right. And I think that's the thing that'll be a theme throughout this conversation today is like SOPs help everyone on the team understand who's going to do what, by when, and how. And SOPs are really should incorporate all of that. It's a recipe for everyone learning what do I need to do, by when, and how does it need to get done? So let's just talk a little bit about so that's what an SOP is. Let's just talk about what makes SOPs good or bad. Right. We're going to hopefully help everyone today learn how to make really good SOPs that are really effective at getting the right things done at the right time in a specific way. But what makes them good or bad?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of things can make them bad, but let's focus on the things that can make them good.
Yeah.
So the analogy I like to use for this is from a book I read called 4 Disciplines of Execution.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember the author, but I really enjoyed that book. And it talked about the difference between a player scorecard and a coach scorecard. And they were using football as an example. And I know neither of us are sports guys, but I still get to take a stab at it. When a player looks at the scoreboard, they see 3 or 4 key pieces of information. When a coach looks at the scoreboard, he sees that information, or they see that information, but they also have a ton of supporting documentation. And the goal of this is setting it up as a game they can win. Every player on the field doesn't need to memorize everybody else's play. They just need to do what they do well. And that's why we have what we call the anatomy of an SOP, which is setting it up so that it's a game that they can win. Your staff might be interested in the workings of the business. Maybe some of them are, but really they need to know, like, how do I nail this task? And like you said, what do I need to do, by when, and who do I need to let know that it's done? So there's 2 really important pieces to a core SOP. The first person, my goodness, let me start over. The first part, English, Monday, is a learner's SOP. A learner's SOP is every single step in excruciating detail. It's so someone who's never done that SOP before can get it, let's say 80% right on the first go around. It's got the appropriate links. It might have the login, excruciating detail. Then there's the expert SOP. The expert SOP is like the high level overview of what are the key things that need to be hit. And this is important because when you have a learner's SOP, it's for people, as you'd expect, who are learning. So they might not know, like, what's the login for that thing, or where do we keep the appropriate detergent or soap that we mop the floors with, that type of piece. The expert SOP is intended for people who have done it a number of times, because if you have to go through a 6-page document to find the one step you were thinking of, because you've already done this thing a bunch of times, but you got a brain fart, so to speak, you're probably not going to look at the SOP. It needs to be really simple at the top, really detailed at the bottom. At least that's how I like to set mine up, so that if I'm asking Michael to do something, or someone on my team, and they've done it a few times before, they don't need the full thing. Often they just have to click the link, and they don't even need to scroll to be able to see the key steps. Like, oh, step 4, that's the one I always forget.
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, I think it's a great breakdown. And just to go back to 4 Disciplines of a Team, I looked it up while you were talking. It's Chris McChesney and Sean Covey, or the authors. 4 Disciplines of Execution. Sorry, I got the title wrong. It's a good one. So yeah, I want to just yes and everything you said, which is so often people have this kind of bias because as the person making the SOP, you likely already know how to do this task. You've likely already done this task a million times. Let's just say, for example, just like something simple, like just opening up your gym in the morning, right? Turning the lights on, the music on, getting the air temperature right, getting the floor set up properly, whatever, the computer's turned on, all that stuff. You as a gym owner, you created this system. You put all those things in those places. Right? You can open up the gym with your eyes closed. So when you go to make an SOP for this process of opening up the gym, you have to get through all of your kind of bias of knowing how to do it already and think like a beginner, which is why this thing that Ben just outlined of having like a real learner's SOP, it's a version of this task. It's instructions for doing this task that a stranger could pick up and do well. right? As opposed to the instruction someone needs who's done it 100 times. They need what Ben referred to as an expert SOP, right? Which is just a few reminders, maybe a quick checklist to make sure I'm not missing anything on, as I'm walking in on this kind of Monday morning at 6 a.m. I just need a checklist to refer to because I'm just a little tired and my eyes aren't open yet, right? But I've done it 100 times. I know the things, but I just might forget, right? And I think having both of those be part of your SOP are really pretty critical. I'll also say here, another analogy that helps me think about this is thinking about it like a recipe, right? If I ask anyone on this call to go make some brownies, you go online, you find a recipe, and it tells you here are the ingredients you need, here's how long it's going to take, here's the step-by-step instructions, here's what it should look like when it's done, right? We could all probably go make some friggin' brownies, right? If we had the time and all the right tools. That's what we're looking for when we talk about a learner's SOP. It's all the instructions to make it clear how to get the same results over and over again. But as
Can
an
I give a
expert, yeah, I was going to say just to finish the analogy. But as an expert, like I've made many things in my life so many times that I don't freaking need the recipe anymore. I may need to go and look at the ratio of something, especially if I'm baking really quickly. But I don't need that anymore. I just need a quick reminder of, oh yeah, what's in this? Well, what kind of flour is that? And then I'm good to go. Sorry, keep on. Yeah, what were you going to add, Ben?
No, it's a perfect analogy, and I just wanted to use the opening and closing, or opening the gym analogy.
Yeah,
Your expert SOP for opening the gym, just to make this real for you, might look like door unlocked, lights on, music on, equipment out, program out, temperature set.
yep,
I don't know, that might be it. The learner's SOP, using the baking example, because I'm not a bad baker, or sorry, I'm not a good baker. It might be like unlock the door, make sure the bolt is in this position,
yep,
turn on the lights. Here's where you find the different light switches for the different area. Maybe you have a photo of where each light switch is so they can find it.
yeah,
Music on. What volume do you set it at? Do you have a playlist that you're not allowed to play, or do you have a recommended playlist?
yep,
Temperature. Where do I find the thermostat, and what temperature do I have to set it to if it's something
yeah,
that you need to do? Equipment out. What does the equipment out being in the right place look like? Because if I was going to bake brownies and Michael said, mix the flour with the eggs with the sugar, I don't even know what ingredients go into brownies. What I'm thinking as a beginner is like, where the fuck is the flour? What
yeah,
size bowl do I need to use? Do I
yep,
use like a spoon to mix it, or a whisk, or like a
yep,
KitchenAid? And
yep,
that's the level of detail the learner's SOP has to have, because it's assumed it's people are doing it for probably the very first time. Turn
yeah,
on the lights is
exactly.
easy. But even if you go to a friend's house, it's like, what light switch is for the bathroom? Oh, it's on the outside of the door, not the inside. That's different than my bathroom. Okay, I
Yeah,
got to remember that.
totally. Yeah, I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but I'll also say like an SOP like opening up your gym, a learner's SOP for this is a perfect opportunity to use video, right? Because if you can actually just like walk around with your phone and record yourself opening it and give all this detail, right? Because, picture and video is worth 1,000 words, right? That's a perfect opportunity to use more than just written word on paper for an SOP. And a video like this goes such a long way to show them physically in the space what you're doing in real time, is kind of perfect for a learner to follow along on. So I know I'm jumping ahead, but let's actually jump there now, because SOPs can take lots of forms. In fact, written SOPs are just kind of one way to record what your expectations are. You want to walk us through some other common examples, Ben?
Yeah, I've got a list just ready for that, Michael.
I thought you might.
So printed and digital docs and checklists. So either printed, i.e. paper, or digital, they have to open up their computer. It could be a doc, it's like a Google Doc, or it could be in a software such as Notion. Sometimes it might be a spreadsheet. Checklists usually going to be in like a spreadsheet, or maybe printed off as a Google Doc that, the opening and close the gym expert SOP would make a perfect checklist. Here's the checklist. It's laminated. You check off the stuff.
Yeah,
Easy
a
peasy.
classic version of that is like the laminated checklist you see in bathrooms that like it's initialed with a date and time that it was cleaned at that time. The same thing could be true for cleaning out your staff fridge or your, right, that these are visual reminders in the space that remind people how to do key tasks. Yeah. Sorry, keep on going. I want to just
No,
interject
perfect
that idea.
example. Printed in digital forms. A great example of this would be like Google Forms or Type Forms or SurveyMonkey, something like that. That when people have to input things when they do the task. Video instructions, like you mentioned, you could walk around the gym and record yourself and narrate it, like kind of like a GoPro perspective on it.
Yep.
Video instructions could also take the form of like screenshots and recordings. So a perfect The biggest life hack that I found for SOPs, because I was the person who wrote everything as a Google Doc, because I don't like watching video. I like reading because I read
Mhm.
quickly, and videos are sometimes hard to speed up unless you get the appropriate plugins for YouTube. I typed everything out. I then had the wonderful feedback from, I think, you to be like, well, what are their learning styles? I'm like, fuck, I
Yeah.
didn't ask that question. So I asked my staff, would you rather videos for this stuff? And they're like, yes. So I started making videos for SOPs, and I just used Loom or Vidyard or whatever screen recorder. If you have an admin task that happens in front of the computer, just record your screen while you're doing it.
Yeah.
That 5 or 10 minute video is your learner's SOP, full stop. It'll save you tons of typing.
Yeah, it's such an important one. I think that if there's any task that happens on a computer or a phone, the learner's SOP should be a recording of you just walking through it. And you can, narrate it with some audio, right? But I think, from anything from teaching someone how to run payroll to clock in and out to change a client schedule, change the credit card on file to doing programming and program design to anything that happens on a computer or a phone, really the learner's SOP should be just a screen cap or recording of that process.
Plus a million.
Yeah. It's faster. It's easier. You record it once and you're done, and to redo to remake that SOP only takes you as long as it takes to do the SOP, to do that process, right? So it takes you 30 minutes to run payroll and you need to remake the process for doing payroll because you need to add some detail. It's going to take you 30 minutes and you're done, right? Where I've seen a lot of people hemming and hawing over writing SOPs and taking weeks and months to kind of write the perfect document when it's like, just record yourself doing it, for crying out loud. Yeah. So keep on going. There's a few more examples, I think, on your list.
Visual templates and signs. Perfect example for this is, do you ever have the problem of your clients never put the equipment back where it's supposed to go back?
Yeah.
Take a picture, put it on the sign. Here's where the kettlebells go. Here's what the rack should look like for the bars. Obviously, your clients or your employees that, they might not get it perfect, nor are they incentivized to get it perfect. But that's a perfect example of like having that sign up there is going to save a lot of work. And then, of course, you can have like wall posters and bulletin boards. I think it's not really an SOP, but we've seen like values for the business on the wall and what the client values are on the wall.
Yeah.
So there's lots of different ways that you can do this. And I guess if your next question is going to be like, well, how do you use these different types of SOPs or decide which one is for which? Think of how the information needs to be displayed. Some things are better written. Some things are better as video. Some of it could also be a capacity standpoint. If you have no SOPs and you're pressed for time, having video is a wonderful start. But think of, not everything has to be a Google Doc, which is what I did back in the first place. Some things are better displayed in different ways for the people who are doing it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well said, my friend. All right. So we talked a little bit about what SOPs are. We've talked a little bit about what makes them good or bad. We've talked a little bit about what kind of like the anatomy of it with the learner's SOPs, the expert SOPs. There's different parts of an SOP here. We talked about all different types of SOPs. So at this point, you'll have a pretty good picture in your mind of like what it looks like to make a useful SOP. So let's talk a little bit about like, once you have it, now what? So once you have that video or that checklist or that document, let's talk a little bit about like the do's and don'ts of kind of rolling out this SOP, because listen, having them is really just, as Ben mentioned earlier, just the first step. Creating an SOP and documenting your expectations doesn't mean everyone's going to do it once they see it. So let's talk a little bit about how do we be thoughtful about rolling out a new SOP?
Yeah, well, for us, or at least at BFU, we think of this in kind of 3 phases. The first phase is teaching them the new SOP.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not, hey, Michael, here's the SOP. Can you do the job this way from now on? Thanks. See ya. Yeah. It's like scheduling time to actually train it to them using like the tell, show, do, apply. Tell them what to do, show them what to do, get them to do the thing, and then get them to do the thing and apply any feedback to it. Maybe there's a faster way. Maybe they're actually better with computers than you are and it can save some clicks. Yeah. But it's doing like thorough training of getting that person up to speed, which again is not showing it to them and expecting brilliance. It's going through it with them, letting them know this is a new standard operating procedure that even exists. They might not have known there was a standard beforehand, and then making sure they can do it well.
Yeah. I'll just pause here and say, this is often where y'all listening stop, right? It's like, well, I told them. right? We did it once. I said it in a meeting. I said it in a one-on-one, and like, that's great, y'all. It's a great first step, but that is just phase one. So I want to just call that out because I've made that mistake myself many times where I thought, oh, I could just share this SOP with them once in a meeting. They said they got it, so I'm done now, right? You're not, sadly. You're not. It's not the end of the road here. So keep on going, Ben. What's phase 2 and 3?
I'm laughing because I'm laughing at myself because of
It's
the
a
number of
knowing.
times I've
Yeah,
done
it's a
that.
knowing
Dear
laugh. Yeah.
listeners, we are still human and we still screw
Yes.
things up. Learn from our mistakes.
Yes.
All right. Phase two is doing some sort of testing their knowledge of the new SOP. Give them a couple weeks, 2 to 3 weeks to get some practice in, make sure they can actually retain it. But then you can test them in lots of ways. Someone actually in Unicorn Society suggested they were going to do like a real test or like a quiz on it, which I don't think is a bad idea.
Yep.
But usually the
Great.
testing is like it's asking them in one-on-ones. Hey, how's that SOP going? What steps are you having problems with? Can you tell me what the steps are in brief that need to go into that? It can be a written quiz, a verbal quiz. They could just demonstrate them doing it properly. But you gave them the thing, you trained them on the thing. Now you need to make sure they're retaining that information from the thing.
Yeah, because so often, if you roll out a new SOP in a team meeting, it's probably just one of many things you talked about that day. It's possible they totally got it in the moment, had great intentions, and were planning to do it. But then if you circle back in 2 or 3 weeks, they're like, oh, yeah, I remember that thing. I haven't thought about that since. Right? I remember that thing. I thought I was doing it, wasn't I? Right? And so I think this second phase is really about making sure the new knowledge sticks, right? Making sure that the new knowledge is now part of how they do their job, which then leads to phase number 3. So keep on going, my friend.
Phase three, ongoing quality control of the new SOP. How are you going to make sure that beyond the testing phase and they got it right, that they're continuing to do it? We all know what it's like to study for a test, know that on that multiple choice, the answer is C, because it's always C. And then the next semester, we forgot the thing. So if we're expecting them to do this well and hit the standards over time for the benefit of the business, the clients, yourself, everyone involved, we need ways to make sure that these are being done long term. And sometimes that means you have to be enforcing it, unfortunately, long term. So a few ways you can do that are doing regular performance audits and evaluations. For instance, we highly recommend doing like session audits for your trainers. That session audit is essentially the expert SOP. Here's the things that need to be hit in a session.
Yep.
You could do the same thing for admin. Are there any credit card billing mistakes? Is you or the person doing the lead follow-up getting to leads in the appropriate amount of time? That you can check in on these things to make sure they're happening properly. And if they're not, troubleshoot, because even if they're competent people, sometimes we still miss stuff. I miss something yesterday. You can also do it in meeting agendas to remind and review SOPs. Hey, for the next 8 weeks, we're going to review one of these or two of these SOPs a week. You can do it in one-on-one meetings. That's kind of a low-hanging fruit if you notice something's being missed, or just checking in on that thing being done.
Yep.
And then you can also use staff meetings, of course, to like test and retest the skills that are being used.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great overview, Ben. It really is. I think the big picture we want you all to have in mind for phase 3 is that ongoing quality control is a forever job, right? And it's not just about any one SOP. It's about all the SOPs, right? On an ongoing basis, to manage people is to make sure that they are crossing their T's and dotting their I's in all the ways that matter to the business, right? So if you have an SOP for how trainers show up and deliver their services on the floor every day, who's following up to make sure they're actually doing that well on a regular basis? Someone has to be, right? And I don't mean it in like a creepy big brother, we should be micromanaging people all the time, but I find a lot of managers, a lot of people who don't want to be managers use that as an excuse to not manage. Well, I don't want to be a micromanager. Well, there's a big difference between just managing people and being a micromanager. Managing people is making clear expectations, clear SOPs, great training, giving them all the tools and resources they need to do their job well, and then also checking in to make sure they are doing the job well, that they are performing well, getting the results that you're looking for, that are required of their job. And if they're not, there's real accountability. There's a real cost. There are real consequences to people not performing at the level that you set. If they're not reaching the bar or leaping over that bar on a regular basis, there has to be some consequences. And that's true on any team that you're ever going to be on, right? To continue part of this team, you got to quote, pull your own weight. Not that you can't stumble, not that you can't make mistakes, not that we can't lift each other up when you've got more energy than I have on a given day, right? But by and large, the quality control process is the process of managing people over time. And I think having all those things that have been listed in place, things like regular one-on-one meetings, regular performance reviews and audits, right? Regular testing that you do in team meetings to make sure people are still good at their jobs, right? All of that all rolls up into one long-term, ongoing quality control process that is the act of managing people. That is what it looks like. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Anything?
kind of just you have a business. That business involves people. Those people need to be managed.
That's it. That's
Don't
it. I
make
know it's easier said than done. That's a lot of stuff, but that's all that's required to have a people business.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, and if this wasn't required, our gyms wouldn't be in business because we would just be
Yeah.
able to post a blog post with how much protein your clients are supposed to get, and then they would all just do
Yes.
it.
Everyone just does
Right?
it, and then we don't have jobs anymore. Yeah. Yeah. The reason we have jobs as managers managing our teams, and our teams have jobs helping our clients get the results they want, is because people need help. They need help and support and cheerleading and accountability. And that's what we're here to do as managers. So, let's leave it there. We could keep talking about SOPs all day, but I think we covered what are SOPs. We covered how to create good ones. We talked about rolling them out in an efficient way using those 3-phase methods. Anything else you want to say to close this out about SOPs, Ben?
Yeah, I just want to circle back to what you said at the beginning. Like, this isn't sexy. It's not
Mm-hmm.
fun. It's not why I started a business because I wanted to screen record me doing shit so like other people could do it, and then I check in to see if they do the shit properly for a forever basis. Like,
Yeah.
doing some of this stuff kind of sucks. So if you're listening to this being like, wow, I really need some systems in place, but oh, that sounds kind of tedious. Like, it can
Yeah.
be. Yeah. That's sometimes just the price that needs to be paid in order to make things work the way you want them to work. But if you feel like the system that runs your gym is your elbow grease and capacity, or you find that your staff aren't doing things to the standards that you want them to do, or that things just aren't being done properly around the gym and it's all falling on your shoulders. Like, I talk to so many people who feel that that's the case. Like,
Yep.
this is the next step. And as much as it's not the funnest thing, I would
Yeah.
really push you to put some time in, start to roll these out. Like, tomorrow, your gym isn't going to be majorly different, but 6 months from now, you're going to
Yeah.
have a lot less hours on your plate that you can spend on marketing or going for a walk or petting your dog or hanging out with your family or doing all the things you dreamt of doing when you started your business in the first place.
Yeah. Well said, my friend. And we've seen it happen. We've seen people in Unicorn Society make huge changes to their gym over time by rolling out SOPs. And I often say that, creating SOPs in your business is like the eat your fucking vegetables of entrepreneurship, right? It's just like, you just got to eat your fucking vegetables, get them down. Doesn't matter how it is, how much fiber it is, right? You just need to get it, you need to get it in, right? Just make those SOPs, create clear expectations and processes that make things repeatable. Yeah. Great summary. Thanks for that, Ben. All right. Well, let's wrap it up there, friends. As a reminder, click the link down in the show notes, get our free sales scripts so you have a process to follow. And in fact, our sales scripts are an SOP for your sales process. So what do you know? We have a through line in this episode today. Thanks for a great call again, Ben. I'll see you on the next one.
Looking forward to it.